Hey, good morning, Hope Community Church. We're in Acts chapter 14, and Paul and Barnabas had been preaching the gospel, and some people wanted to stone them. In Acts 14:6, it says this: When they learned of it, they fled to Lystra and to Derbe and the cities of Lycaonia and to the surrounding country, and there they continued to preach the gospel. Now at Lystra, there was a man sitting who had no use of his feet. He was crippled from birth and had never walked. He was listening to Paul speaking, and Paul looked at him intently, and seeing that he had faith to be made well, said in a loud voice, he said, "Stand up, upright on your feet." And he sprang up and he began walking. And when the crowd saw what Paul had done, they lifted their voices, saying in Lycaonian, "The gods have come down to us in the likeness of men." And Barnabas they called Zeus, and Paul Hermes, because he was the chief speaker. And the priest of Zeus, whose temple was at the entrance of the city, brought oxen and garlands to the gates and wanted to offer sacrifices with the crowds. But the apostles, Barnabas and Paul, heard of it, and they tore their garments and rushed out into the crowd, crying, "Men, why are you doing these things? We are also men of like nature with you, and we bring you good news, that you should turn from these vain things to a living God, who made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that is in them. In past generations he allowed all the nations to walk after their own ways, yet he did not leave himself without a witness. He did good by giving you rains from heaven and fruitful seasons, satisfying your hearts with good food and gladness." Even with these words, they were scarcely restrained from offering sacrifice to them. So, so when we look at this text here, there's a couple things. One, Paul and Barnabas are going to preach the gospel, and they're going to share it in two ways. They're going to give two witnesses, so to speak, and one witness is the gospel itself. They're going to share the good news that is written in the scriptures, and they're sharing that with these people. And then, secondly, they're going to point around and say, look how God has been good to you. Look at the world around you, and you can see that God is there. Now, there's a couple of things that are going to happen, and these always happen um, when we share the gospel. People, one, are going to try. Some are going to try to shut you down, and they tried to do that with Paul and Barnabas. And Paul and Barnabas just continued to preach. When their life was in danger, they moved to the next town and continued to do that. But a second thing that you'll see here is they want to incorporate what Paul and Barnabas were teaching into what they already know. We do that here all the time. Certainly, we do this with politics. And instead of surrendering our politics to Jesus, we kind of bring a little bit of Jesus into that. And that's what's going on here. Paul and Barnabas were very clear that this was about Jesus healing, but they incorporated their previous beliefs and brought that into that, and wanted to basically worship these guys. And Paul and Barnabas, who are true believers, just said, "No, no, why would you do that? You need to turn from these things. Let's turn to the true gospel." And it's a reminder to us today that we need to stick with the gospel. Stick with the gospel. We don't need to bring other things into it. Instead, we need to understand the other things in the light of the gospel. And I encourage you to continue in that light, to read his word, to know his word, and share it with others. Love you, praying for you.